Just general about it. I have a very, very keen sense of smell, which isn't always a good thing because I smell smoke or, hours. Even if somebody going by in a car, I can smell if they've been smoking or are smoking. And also I have a very keen sense of taste, but it's getting stronger as I get older because I'm now almost 70. So it's not, I think somebody said that these diminish as you get older. And I'm always told that I'm very picky about food, people will eat rubbish, and I won't, I will eat it, but I won't enjoy it really, So, and also just one thing, sometimes when you mentioned about the saliva, I find sometimes when I eat, my nose will run, and it's nothing got to do with heat. So I don't know whether that's got to do with taste and smell and... I don't really have a question. I've always been very fascinated and just always had a very strong sense of smell and taste. I don't drink wine really. I do like the smell of it or a little taste of it. I used to drink, but a long time ago. So I don't know whether there's anything there that you can talk about based on what I've said, because there was no specific question. It's just I'm very, smell is so important for me and taste as well. I just feel it's very fine-tuned. But I didn't study it or anything. It's just innate. Sometimes, as I say, unfortunately.
There were two things you said there. First of all, that your sense of smell diminishes when you sort of get older. I think, luckily for us, in men it diminishes faster than in women. And it is 65 onwards, it does start to go downhill, apparently. But I think if you use it like a muscle, then you generally will be improving it. That's what I'm living on as well. But the nose, I think that's spice that affects your nose running when you're eating. Because I have the same, all my whole... that's the only, because it's not acidity. But I'm not the expert on that, and that's, yeah. Yeah. No. So it's obviously specific to yourself, and yeah. Yeah.
So we have about time for 2 or 3 questions because it's okay. We have the next person zooming in and we have to keep to their time. I think there's a question up the back.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Alejandro Lopez. I am faculty in GBHI and also an assistant professor in Trinity. Thank you for all the conversations. They've been fantastic. The question for me here would be, how do you see the senses bringing us together? So senses are, of course, an individual trait of each of us. How do you see them in their role as creating a collective or that togetherness that we've been discussing earlier today?
Wine tasting. Drinking in a crowd. That's my answer for...
Well, this event happened because I strolled into Searsons, where Harriet's dad was having a wine tasting, and I wound up talking to him a little, and it became clear that they were very general, that all the world in a grain of sand kind of thing, but we can actually discuss things, everything to do with improved experiences and connections, etc., can be viewed through this one sort of a lens. I mean, in terms of senses, I would say that attention to the senses is, if you go bird watching with people, I go bird watching with kids, for instance, in India I've gone a few times. Just paying attention to something and being able to see detail, you don't have to pay anything for it. It's something that comes from inside you. And I find paying attention together to something on the outside to be extremely a wonderful way to connect across. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
I'll probably add to that by saying that senses and rhythm are important as well, and rhythm is something which connects us as well. So many sort of sensory experiences involve repetitive rhythms. If you think about sports activities where we engage in repetition, and so that's something which I think gives us a lot of joy. It allows us to step outside of our minds, be more externally focused, but also share something collectively with others.
I want to just add, because Shane is here, it reminds me as well. So one of the issues is if there's a group of us who are all having a conversation, how do we know we are in synchrony or thinking in the same sort of a way? And there's a potential ways in which you can actually monitor brain signals and see whether we are actually, the signals are in synchrony. And I would say that if we are together focusing on a certain sensation or have similar kinds of emotional experiences, we are kind of in synchrony. So doing something together, whether it's sensory or thinking in the same place, can actually be recorded, and that's something that I think you and Shane, for instance, are both interested in potentially working on together, right? Yeah.
We have time for another 2 questions while they're looking for someone else with a question. I was really struck by Harriet's observation about smelling wine locating you in place and time. It's extraordinary. So potentially does that mean that if you're drinking the same wine from the same period, you're also locating yourself geographically?
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, Bordeaux is a really good example. So I travel to Bordeaux every year to taste the new vintage, and everyone says, because I do really enjoy the classics, and there's a reason behind that, and that's because every vintage gives you a different expression. And you know, for those of you who might know a little bit about Bordeaux, you have different communes like Pauillac, Saint-Julien, Pomerol. They're on the Saint-Julien is on the left bank, Pomerol on the right bank. You can pick up the grape variety is dominant. On the right bank is Merlot, on the left is Cabernet, and then Saint-Julien tends to be more elegant than Pauillac, for example. So you can put them within villages, and then vintages are, once you taste regularly, are actually quite easy to pick up because you have cooler vintages, you have warmer vintages, you have top vintages like recently 2022, and you tend to sort of have an argument within them, funnel within those options, and then come out with one. And it is amazing how once you train yourself, you can put in. It's a good game. Yeah.
Fantastic game. We have another question up the back.
Yep.
Great.
Go ahead. Yeah, Brian Lawler, I really enjoyed this crossover and crosstalk. It's really a question about smell and Alzheimer's disease. As you know, I mean, Alzheimer's disease, people with Alzheimer's disease can present with loss of smell, and it's been used as a diagnostic test. And I understand that sommeliers actually have a decreased risk of developing neurodegenerative disorders. But my question really is around how we can use smell, perhaps, from a therapeutic point of view. Obviously, there's a lot of emphasis on hearing loss. But I wonder about, given what you were talking about, Paul, in terms of the therapeutic use of smell, maybe we've forgotten about smell and the importance of smell in the modern world. And are there ways, perhaps, that we could utilize stimulation of smell, across the life course, and even with people with, who are at risk of Alzheimer's disease or developing Alzheimer's disease, to perhaps to be able to use this from a therapeutic point of view? I'm just curious about that, because I mean, obviously, observational studies suggest that there is a link. Yeah. And some people are protected if they have very, very good powers of smell.
It's interesting how Harriet described that experience of funneling down, and it reminded me a little bit of old memory techniques like method of loci, where you're linking particular smells, perceptions to spatial locations within your mind. So the Romans used to use palaces in the mind to connect various memories and to walk through that palace to retrieve the information. So I wonder whether smell might be, because of its strong linkage to memory, might be a nice sort of conduit to create these kind of spatial memories within the mind, which might be protective if we practice that skill, and might be a route in.
We could introduce wine tasting in nursing homes.
Yeah. It's
good to hear, though. Yeah.
It's the tasting, not the swallowing.
We have another question up the back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your very interesting presentations, and I love tasting wine. I come back to the comments about the importance of the synergies of all the senses. But before we can talk about the all senses, we need to understand the separate sense, right? And I come to the presentation from Paul, because when you compare between the breathe in and breathe out through nose and through mouth, I think this is not very good comparison, because the mouth is not for breathing, right? It is for tasting, it's for doing something else. It have the different function. So have you look at, for example, the brainwave when you taste rather than breathe? That's the point. And also, I would like to see what is the difference between breathe in and breathe out, and then inhale and exhale, because I know that one of the stress reduction techniques that we try to teach the carers of people with dementia is when we breathe in, then we breathe through nose, and when we exhale, we breathe through the mouth. So what is the difference between breathe in and breathe out?
Yeah.
Yep.
So generally, there's most people breathe through the nose, but there's variations. There's obviously seasonal variations. Sometimes we're forced to be more mouth breathers because of colds and various things. And some people are partially breathing through both channels, through the nose and the mouth. So there is a lot of variation in how people naturally breathe. And it's quite tricky to get at experimentally, because as soon as you start telling people to breathe through one channel or the other, you sort of start to create tensions, and it's slightly abnormal in the way they're breathing. So it's a tricky thing to do. So one thing we can do is monitor the degree of mouth and nose breathing using detectors to try and capture that. So that's one way to look at it. In terms of, I think, a general question as the primacy of olfaction and the fact that we there's such an important sense in our evolutionary history, that I think that the idea of breathing in to take on board information is relevant to a lot of sensory and cognitive experiences. So the pacing of the breath, I think, has relevance to how we organize a lot of our cognition, and that includes memory and attention and so on. So there's a lot more to do to try and unpack exactly how that works.
I can add just one thing to it, which is based on that you said the difference between the mouth and the nose having function for something different. So there's a guy named Gordon Shepherd who passed away, professor in Yale, who was one of the world's experts on both taste and smell. And Harriet actually pointed me to a book. I knew his work as a scientist, but Harriet pointed me to a couple of books of his called Neuroenology and Neurogastronomy. So what he discovered, among other things, was that there are two ways of smelling. One is through inhaling through the nose, and the other is retronasal, which is if you have put something in your mouth, it also has a flavor, and that flavor is tasted retronasally, and it actually goes to a different cavity from what you would normally be breathing in, and there's smell receptors there. So the mouth is sort of complicated. It's involved both in smelling in this way and also in tasting, as you think about it.
And I think, is it 70 to 80% of what you taste is actually identified through smell? I think in one of the, as in retronasally.
So Creative Brain Week works because of the generosity of people's expertise. I would like to express a huge thanks to the three of you for joining us together. Thank you so much.